For people who have won a vacation from a game show, how was the actual trip? I did win a trip on a game show, Wheel of Fortune. It was awesome and was upgraded the entire time. Flights, hotels, etc. Regarding taxes, all you have to do is prove you can get the items cheaper. So even though they said it was a $7,500 trip or something, I was able to find flights cheaper and hotel cheaper than they were claiming as the full retail value. All you have to do is have the proof for the IRS of those cheaper prices for the day. Completely one of those geeks that asked as I was getting my info squared away with them after the show. This should be higher up the list. Almost all prices are valued at full retail or the hotel's rack rate. The IRS is actually pretty reasonable about revaluing it if you do your homework. Radio contests in Canada. My mom won an all expenses paid trip to Disneyland for 4. Got flights, 4 nights in a Disney hotel at the park, 3 days worth of park passes, $500 Disney cash and a voucher for 1 free theme breakfast and 1 free theme dinner. Trip cost maybe $500 out of pocket, so 10/10 would do again. I also won a radio contest in Canada. I won a 7-night/8-day vacation to a Sandals resort in the Bahamas. Everything was included. All we had to pay for was a dinner on the dock during the sunset for $100 that we wanted to do for our wedding anniversary. The trip was amazing and we came home with a permanent souvenir, my son. I won a trip to Vermont on some Nickelodeon game show. They only offered extremely specific dates that were super inconvenient to anyone. Given that I was in high school and couldn't just fly off to a cabin on a Wednesday-Friday getaway, the prize expired a year later. I won a trip for 2 to a convention once. It was pretty sweet. They paid for airfare from east to west coast, put us up in Embassy Suites, which was about a mile walk from the convention center, and got us tickets into the con itself. They didn't bother to put our names on the badges and the taxes sucked. They did warn us that we would owe taxes, but they didn't really explain the value of what we would be paying taxes on until we got the tax form. I read it as convenience store. I was like, WTF. Towards the end of her life, pretty much housebound due to COPD, my very intelligent mother started entering competitions online to keep her brain active as her body deteriorated. And she would win. Little bits here and there, a CD, a bottle of perfume, some DVDs, etc. Then one day she got an email from the Guardian newspaper telling her she had won one of 5 top prizes in a holiday competition, winning a £10,000 2-week trip to Peru. Everything was included, a full itinerary tour, bed and breakfast accommodation in 4 hotels and all flights and transfers. Cue excitement and joy before she eventually came to terms with the fact that she was far too sick to go. She was on piped oxygen in the house, so going somewhere where oxygen is thin was a really bad idea. They were very good and offered her basically any alternative up to the same cost, but no one would insure her to go anywhere, and she came to the realization that she would never travel anywhere again. She gave the holiday to me and I ended up going with a mate, and it was a great holiday, but the whole time I felt guilty that I was going and not her. We made sure to bring back lots and lots of presents. She died about 6 months later. Man, the whole idea that at some point our body can become a prison to our minds makes me tear up a bit. Not a game show but a radio contest. Amazing. Best vacation I've ever been on. All inclusive at an adult only resort in the Dominican Republic. Upgraded room. Turn down service. Everything included except excursions. Best vacation to date. I won a trip to Las Vegas on a Price is Right live show. Had the option to take the trip, worth $1,200, or take smaller cash prize, I think $700. Right away, I decided to take the trip as I had never been to Vegas. The company that put on the show contacted me about a week later to talk to me about it. I told them I wasn't sure when I wanted to go and I would contact them when I knew. A couple of weeks after that, they sent me a check for the full amount of the trip with a note saying that I can book my trip whenever I want. I ended up getting tires and brakes for my car instead. They sent me a check for the full amount of the trip with a note saying that I can book my trip whenever I want. I ended up getting tires and brakes for my car instead. Being an adult summed up right there. I won a trip to the Poconos from a Chicago radio show in 1996. It was at a decently cheesy hotel with a bed shaped like a heart and a jacuzzi and pool in the room. Oh, I took my then girlfriend. I have no complaints. I don't think I needed to pay any taxes. Didn't think I would see my old home in this thread. There are so many hotels that have had that cheesy heart-shaped bed with a hot tub. It's almost like a requirement, haha. My friend won a trip to meet Bam Margera. As the date approached, the $3,000 trip was only us getting our lodging and our meals taken care of. In suburban Philadelphia, friend's uncle, a lawyer, raised a real stink about it, so they flew us to LA instead and paid for everything. Trip was great, but since I was a teenager at the time, I imagine it could have been better. Also, Bam was an but, never said 2 words to us. Simply talked to the guy who ran the competition the whole time. Worth the story though. I won a radio contest in Chicago for having an ugly tattoo. The prize was free removal. I didn't go through with it because the taxes were going to be around $1,200, and I would have had to drive over an hour to the clinic, and was estimated to need 7 sessions. I'd rather spend that much money on a cover-up and get something that I'd like. I won a 7-night 8-day stay in Washington. Taxes about $275 for both my husband and me together. Add to that the $400 round trip airfare for us. And I'm still pretty pleased with a week-long vacation in a luxury condo for that price. I checked, and just a moderately priced hotel would cost as much for the same location and length of stay before airfare. I had a friend who won a trip to Dubai on the Ellen show. She also won for the audience, I believe, and from what she posted on social media, it went rather well. I have a friend that was given a trip to London by Ellen. She loved the trip, but the taxes were close to $5,000. Won a trip to the Super Bowl in New York from Gillette via Twitter. It was about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. At first I thought it was a hoax, but my daughter won and took me along. Everything was first class. Hotel JW Marriott Times Square. Place was loaded with players current and ex. Plus all the Super Bowl NFL stuff was happening right there. Pre-game at the stadium included the band Perry. All the food and drinks we wanted, open bar and stars in the pre-game tailgate. Bus transfer from hotel to stadium, flights and row 1 seats near the Seahawks bench. We were sitting in front of players' wives, girlfriends and friends. They carried the Super Bowl trophy right past us and the sideline was full of stars. Everything was first class. I will never shave with anything but Gillette ever again. And now I know my Fusion Prog eye replacement blades cost $35. Since no one has answered yet, I'll bring up this not so fun fact. Many people who win vacations can't afford to take them because game show prizes are taxed as income. Correct. If you can justify taking a $9,000 trip for the $3,000 in taxes, go for it, because that's a great deal. If you live paycheck to paycheck, you might want to go for the cheaper new living room showcase when you're on The Price is Right. Obligatory, not a game show, but a competition via Twitter. Won a trip to New York from the UK for 2 people. It was return flights from Heathrow to JFK. 2 nights stay in a 4 hotel. Airport transfers. £500 spending money. A helicopter flight. And tickets to a Broadway show of our choice. Due to flight timings, we ended up using some of the spending money to pay for a 3rd night at the hotel. The trip was everything I'd hoped and more. I'd always wanted to go to New York and it didn't disappoint. The helicopter flight was a massive highlight. And we went to see The Lion King, which was also amazing. We used some of our own savings so that we had plenty of spending money for a once-in-a-lifetime trip. But 10/10 would recommend you enter random competitions on Twitter. They only gave you 2 nights. That seems like a long way to go to be there for such a short time. I won a spring break trip to Florida in a bar raffle when I was in university. When I went to collect it, I learned it was a bus ticket to Florida from Detroit. So 2 days of driving, a presumably crappy hotel. But the worst was that it was a trip for 1. If I wanted to go, I'd have to convince someone to purchase another ticket. Like, WTF. Oh, please sit on a Greyhound with me and 50 other crazy spring breakers for 2 days on our way to the Cockroach Motel. Not a game show, but my parents won an all-inclusive trip to see the Toronto Blue Jays play the Boston Red Sox back in the early 90s. It was some sort of draw, and when they told my mom she won, she didn't believe them. So they sent a package. Flights from Toronto to Boston, hotel info, game tickets. It was a 4-day stay, and she thought it was a scam, so she threw it out. A few days later they called and said, "Hey, your trip is next week. Have you booked anything?" She freaks out, realizing it's not a scam, and eventually finds the trip package in the trash. They end up going, had a great long weekend touring Boston, and enjoy a true all expenses paid trip. I don't remember much more than that, because I was like 7 at the time. We do love to bring it up every once in a while, just to tease mom. I won a 3-day, 4-night, all expenses paid vacation to Vegas by calling in and answering one of those radio station giveaways. I'm not sure how the trip was, because the first thing they did was ask me to put down a $2,000 deposit. Go figure. My wife won a trip to Toronto as part of the Knicks Face Awards makeup contest. They offered to pay her airfare, but it's only a 3-hour drive, so I tagged along and we just drove. They put us up in the Shangri-La, which is a freaking gorgeous hotel, and brought us to a bar for a private function. It was really cool. They had acrobatic performers and an open bar. After that we fricked off on our own and continued having an awesome night. Not a game show, but I won a vacation to the Beaches Resort in Jamaica from Radio Disney when I was 9 years old. The vacation was awesome. My family had never stayed at an all-inclusive resort before, so as a kid, I thought that I was in heaven. They had awesome food, I could just join into whatever game or activity I wanted to, and everything was open, as far as I was concerned, all the time. In addition to that, Radio Disney selected 10 winners for this trip and had a day where all 10 of us and our families got to participate in special VIP events, including a private concert with Jesse McCartney. My little kid mind was totally blown. It was the trip of a lifetime and I'll never forget it. We, my parents, were responsible for the income tax for this trip, but it was still a way better deal than paying for the trip outright. Not a game show, but I did win a 3-day trip to Florida for 2 from a radio show, and let me tell you, it sucked. First, the condo we won was straight up a hotel room looking timeshare in Panama City on the dirtiest part of the beach in Panama City, and that's saying something. And I don't mean seaweed and sea stuff washed ashore, I mean like beer cans and fast food bags next to dirty diaper bad. Secondly, they didn't even pay for travel, which was fine. We lived in Georgia, so it wasn't that bad. But they did pay for one night 5-star dinner, and it was some tourist trap Florida authentic seafood place where the seafood was crap and the atmosphere was annoying, and if traveled 15 minutes down the road you'd find the same restaurant with a different name. I spent maybe $600 on food and a dolphin tour, which was fun. Overall I'd rate it a 7/10 cause 3 days off work and at least we got free lodging. TLDR. It sucked. 7/10 would do again. I did. I won a trip to the Bahamas on a cruise ship of a radio station. Funny was my husband had quit that radio station only 3 months before, or I wouldn't have been allowed to win. Found out it was my mom who actually entered my name in a 7-Up drawing. I had just given birth to my daughter a few months before, so my mom and I went together while my husband stayed home with our daughter and eldest son. It was wonderful and great, and we were able to do a lot of sightseeing. Everything was paid, including all tips. I am not sure I remember how much the taxes were, but it wasn't bad at all considering the total cost of the trip. The only issue I had was the entire cruise was filled with people who won the trip by either winning contests like I did or being the top sellers of the product in their area or who were bigwigs in the industry. I was shocked at how many people were complaining over the slightest things on the trip, thinking, why are you complaining? You are not paying anything to take the trip. Talk about being spoiled. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like you have a freaking awesome husband for staying at home with a newborn and another kid while mama and Mill go relax. Like, no doubt you deserved a vacation, but wow, that's a beautiful relationship you two must have. I won a trip to Rottnest, a small island off the coast of Western Australia, and when I turned up for the ferry they told me the tickets were fake. Don't worry mate, you weren't missing much. Saved my life. My then fiancée, now ex-wife, won a contest in BC's interior. Small cruise on a ferry, use of a 4x4, hotel and accommodation for a week, a grand in camping gear, and a couple of bicycles. The trip was great. The ferry hit a log and broke the propeller, so they put in a different one. We were one of the first landers at this small island, so we got to check it out and explore. Drove down in the interior, an excellent time all around. The bikes, when we won them, I was 250 pounds and really out of shape. I decided to bike to school and got about 200 yards before I had to rest. It took more than a month before I could get the 2 miles to school, but I did it. Along the way I missed an appointment with a cardiologist and a coroner. Now I weigh about 160 pounds. Not a game show, but I have won trips from photography awards. They are fantastic, but not entirely free. For underwater photo awards, the stay and the diving is usually free. You still have to pay for airfare, tipping, drinks, and other activities. If you want to travel anyway, it is a way to save a lot of money, but expect your bank to still dislike you at the end of it. My wife won a trip to Barbados through a radio show. Went with 40 other people who also won the same contest. All expenses paid, meals and drinks were covered. The only catch was a mandatory Shaggy and Jonas Brother concert. Wasn't me. So, not a contest, but my parents purchased 2 vehicles during a dealership promotion in the mid-90s. Purchase any vehicle and get a 4-day, 3-night vacation to Florida, Bahamas, 2-3 other places for up to 3 people. The promo was intended to clear out mid-range stock and was limited to 1 per customer. My parents owned a small construction business and were in the market to purchase a heavy-duty pickup and a new personal vehicle that would haul a family of 5 including 3 teenagers. The sales rep pointed out the limitation. My parents told him they were willing to walk on a $60,000 plus sale unless they got the deal for both vehicles. We ended up on a nearly 2-week vacation for 5 people to Florida than the Bahamas with travel and hotels paid. Basically my parents paid for food for the trip. It was a pretty fantastic experience for a family that rarely went on any real vacations. I won a radio call-in trip for a 9-day stay in Australia. On top of that, we flew on the newly commissioned Virgin Blue Airlines with a band jet, got free tickets to the Home Bake Festival, and got a private concert hangout session with the band jet. Free hotel stay as well. The only downside is that when the winners were asked how they got the tickets, most of them had some hardship story about taking care of a handicapped loved one for all their lives, or an essay they wrote to win. And I had to look everyone in the eye and tell them I just called into the radio and won. Bonus info, my daughter was conceived on this trip. Broken condom, not her name but the event that happened. And my wife ended up winning 2nd place in a pregnant bikini contest for the same radio station, and we told this story during the contest. Not on a game show, but given the shortage of responses I'll add my experience. When I was at school I won a competition run by St. John's Ambulance to go to Malta. It was pretty great. My family and I got to stay in a fairly touristy but decent hotel close to some nice beaches, and we got shown around the Royal Palace, I forget its name, including various areas not open to the public, by the head of the Maltese Armed Forces. My mom won a trip to Ireland on the radio and took my dad. They didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I think they enjoyed it. She's always wanted to go back. I won a radio contest from a morning radio show in Chicago to Punta Cana just this last February. Trip taxes were only $600. Split it with my boyfriend. I had no complaints. It was all inclusive and we got to see 2 bands perform 2 days in a row. It was 4 nights, 5 days. It was something I would have never paid to go do myself, so it worked out pretty great. I didn't win a vacation through a game show, but I did win one through a sweepstakes. I won a 3-day trip to San Francisco with an exclusive tour of Pixar and lunch with the directors and artists of Brave. At first I was skeptical. They called me and told me I won and asked for my email to set up the entire affair, but to my utter surprise it turned out to be 100% genuine. I got free round-trip airfare, a stay in a super swanky hotel in downtown San Francisco, a car rental, and the tour with the lunch. The tour was only 1 day, So the other 2 days I spent exploring San Fran with my mom and seeing the sights. We went on a boat tour, saw the bridge close up, saw the redwood trees, went to Fisherman's Wharf. It was wickedly awesome 10/10 experience. One of the best vacations I have ever been on. Especially I would never be able to afford to go out to California. I won a trip to Vegas in a radio contest. Flight, hotel and concert tickets to see Britney Spears. Plus $100 Visa gift card to pay the daily resort fee. The only things we ended up paying for was food and drinks. I had an amazing time. Crap was expensive, as could be expected, but because everything else was taken care of we had a bit extra to spend on other fun things. The trip was taxed, but the radio station gave us all the information we needed to easily include it in our tax filing, and it wasn't too much. We just used part of our return toward it. Not me, it was my one of high school teachers who spent his half of life in France after his mom won a vacation from a game show in a city of southern France no one of his family could speak French before shifting or no one had any blood connection with French. So that prize got from a game show changed direction of my teacher's whole life and career, which was cool. I once won a free trip to Red Robin where my meal was carved. They charged me for the beer though. The food was just okay. Well, that sounds acceptable. Must have been the okayest day ever. My brother won a showcase on The Price is Right. Sold all of the prizes and used the money to go to Uganda for a year to build houses. Other than being shot at, it was a good time, he said. Mum had to fill in a slogan for something she bought. A school bag for my sister I think. And that slogan won us a trip to some mountain place in Belgium. A long weekend of swimming, biking and climbing. 10/10. Won an all expense paid vacation to the Poconos when I was in the 5th grade. Was on a game show called Pick Your Brain back in the 90s. This place was not the place where a kid going from 5th grade onto 6th grade could readily have fun. The ad for the resort said the honeymoon capital of the US. Our room also had a mirror on the ceiling. So that was the educational part of my trip, was learning why that was there. All the food was cruise ship style. You had a set breakfast, lunch and dinner time each with a set menu that you could order off of. The food was also pretty whatever. I distinctly remember really hating their roast beef meal. Days were spent either by the pool, which was always freaking crowded in a not fun way, or participating in their daily activities. Once again, like a cruise ship, they had designated activities time like bingo and the cafe between 2 PM and 4 PM. All in all, it wasn't bad, just a very sort of factory type vacation experience. However, I think my folks enjoyed the trip more than I did, so I always considered it like a gift I won for them. 4/7 would go again. Actually, because I'm older I probably would go to something like that just to get the crap out of town for a bit. Won a 4-day, 4-night stay in the Bahamas from a prize draw at a local car convention. As it turned out, it was a scam to get people's information. The convention center figured this out and the company offering that prize is banned from returning. Even after placing myself on the national do not call list, I still get calls from random numbers years later telling me I won. 0/10 wouldn't recommend. I joined the Air Force in '77 and won an all-expense trip to the Persian Gulf in the summer of '90. Our group had so much fun we still wake up in the middle of the night and laugh. Back in the late 90s when I was in high school, I won a trip to see my favorite band. They paid for our flights and lodging and travel, tickets, food act. I think we just paid for our lunches. The band manager was kind of our driver and he was awesome. He played some new music from some new people to get our opinion on if we liked it. We got to do dinner with the band backstage before one gig. Our concert tickets were beyond insanely awesome. Plus we had unlimited backstage passes so we could just leave our seats and go backstage for a drink or bathroom. We saw them in concert 3 nights in a row in Phoenix AZ, Newport Beach CA, and another CA location. The resorts we stayed at were awesome. Dinners were backstage each night. One night the band joined us. Breakfast was at the hotels and lunch was our own choice. I think I also won $500 spending money that I used for bills. I took my mom and another couple had also won. I was a huge fan and very active on their message boards, so I posted about the whole trip as it was going on, which was kinda fun because one of the band guys was like, "Who's the one posting on the boards?" Me. The only sucky part wasn't their fault. My luggage got lost and didn't arrive until the third day, aka the night before we were to travel home. I had bought a lot of awesome new outfits to wear each night and ended up wearing the same thing the whole time. Oh well. The band was a Christian band. Third day, still one of my faves. I won tickets to go to a NASCAR race and visit the pit pass. Then they told me I'd be responsible for paying taxes on the price of the trip, and I said frick that. It was valued at like $5,000 pp. The stay was paid for. 3 or 4 star hotel, but not the transportation. I had to take a train and it was not cheap. Bittersweet. It wasn't a game show, but I won a trip to Cancun on the Kid Craddock show back in 2009. The trip was different. It was through Worry-Free Vacations, and we got a voucher for a resort for 3 nights, flying out on Thursday and flying home on Sunday. The only problem was we had to fly out of DFW, no exceptions. This wasn't a huge deal, but I had to pay for flights from Nashville to Dallas for my girlfriend, now wife, at the cost of around $400. Not bad. Thursday's flight from DFW to Cancun was horribly delayed, so we didn't get there at 6 p.m. like we hoped, but instead around 2 a.m. That sucked, but that stuff happens. We enjoyed Friday and Saturday, although we could have enjoyed more if we hadn't been told by the worry-free people that we had to attend a session on Friday, which we totally didn't, to try and upsell us for trip packages. The resort offered plenty of free things, so we spent Friday at the pool and went snorkeling and parasailing on Saturday. Sunday morning, we're waiting for the shuttle to take us to the airport. We had to leave from Cancun for DFW, and then we had a 4-hour window to catch our flight to Nashville. Well, Worry-Free changed our departure time without telling us, so we missed our flight out of Nashville by hours and had to pay $600 to get from DFW to Nashville. Thank goodness for a very kind man at American Airlines in Cancun who even helped us get that set up. All told, this free trip cost us over $1,000 for basically 2 days in Cancun. Worry-Free Vacations has plenty of bad reviews online, and we are one of them. I would never use them again, ever. The customer service was the most atrocious thing I've ever encountered. Still, we went to Cancun, so I guess I can't be too mad. Worry-Free seems to be an ironic name. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.